Holy smokes, we are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and your friends if you want to help support this rebel outpost with a donation. Hit the $sign where you make a comment and I'll get you a super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend. With your comments in the chat room, with your phone calls later in the show. And we are going to get phone calls later in the show. And they're going to be angry phone calls later in the show. Hardly anybody is going to be happy with me by the end of this show. Why? Because tonight, and we're going to be doing this once a week, tonight, Sunday night, November 3rd, it's our college football PATC 12-team playoff projections. I am not here to project what other people are going to what the committee is going to lay down. I'm not here to project what they are projecting. I'm here projecting what I believe is going to be the playoffs, the 12-team playoffs. Now, of course, I'm going to be wrong. Hopefully, I'm not wrong in everything I project tonight. So next week, my projections are going to change. Now, the last one, obviously, my last projections is what I'm projecting the playoff committee is going to select, obviously. But tonight, I'm not projecting what they're going to put down on paper for Tuesday night. I'm projecting what it is ultimately going to be. As we all gather around, we go to the stadiums, watch the playoff games, or we're in the bars, or we're gathering at home with our family and our friends. This is what I think it's going to look like on November 3rd. So I had to project wins and losses for all the teams that still have an opportunity to get into the playoffs. And when you do that, now, you guys know how miserable I am at predicting against the spread. The fat guy from Minnesota probably isn't that much better predicting who's going to win straight up. I mean, my goodness. So, look. Once you go through this exercise, wow. There's a million scenarios at hand. I mean, each and every one of these teams, almost everyone has a landmine that they have to somehow get through, at least one landmine. And if that landmine goes off, it changes everything. So I'm going to lay this down. I'm going to give you PATC projections, and they're not going to be your standard fare. They're not going to be chalkity chalk, chalk, chalk. I'm going to throw one hand grenade into it all. I'm going to get people upset with me. The just missed list. The teams that just missed going into the 12-team playoffs, according to PATC projections, I've got a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got a list of 8 teams that had outstanding seasons. And if you would have said this team would have had this record and accomplished this much, do you think, Greg, they go to the playoffs? And most of these 8 teams, I would have said yes. That team's going to the playoffs. But I got them just missing. So I am going to get a whole lot of people angry with me. This is the college football YouTube channel that gets its community angry. Swamp Fox, good work, Greg. Thank you for your incredible super chat, your generosity. Once again, Swamp Fox, I hope I don't get you upset. I don't know what team you root for. Let me know in the chat room. I know most people who they root for, but I might get you upset even after that super chat. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Appreciate the kind words as well. Thank you so much. Now, a lot of people are saying, like, Don Scruggs. Thank you, Swamp Fox. Don Scruggs, don't do it to Georgia, Greg. Now, what do you want me to do with Georgia? Do you want me to have them in the playoffs? Do you want them to get a bye in the first round? Or don't you want me? Do you want Greg the Cooler picking your team or not picking your team? That is an individual choice that you all have to make. And by the way, Stephen Clark, the Gophers win out and sneak in, right? Right? Well, you're just going to have to find out. Maybe that's one of the hand grenades I threw in the pile. No, I know I did. No, I did not do that. Anyways, first of all, before we get to PATC playoff projections, in which you guys in the chat room are going to say, Greg, your cheese have slipped off your cracker. You're going to give me a phone call. You're going to let me know how wrong I got it once again. That's all good. That's what we're here for. But before we do that, we got to answer the question. We got to answer the question. Did Greg the Gold show up for the second time out of 10 weeks, for the second time in the 2024 college football season? Greg the Gold, is he here tonight? The goal for the second time. Did I have a winning record against the spread? No, I did not. No, I did not. In fact, when the games were going on during Saturday, I thought for sure I was going to have a winning record against the spread. I could only remember the games that I was getting right. I didn't even remember the games I was getting wrong. I thought for sure that I was going to strut in here, be Greg the Gold, but no. I got Minnesota right. I got Oregon right. I got Texas Tech right. I got UCLA right. I got South Carolina right. I got 5 right. But that means I got Pittsburgh wrong, Wisconsin wrong, Clemson wrong, Michigan State wrong, Georgia wrong, Arkansas wrong, Penn State wrong. I went 5-7 once again. The only saving grace is the PATC community. You all geniuses out there, you went 3-9 against the spread. The only games the geniuses got correct was Oregon, Iowa, Indiana. Those are the 3 you got wrong. You got Penn State wrong, Arkansas wrong, Illinois wrong. Illinois wrong. You got Georgia wrong. You got Iowa State wrong. You've got Nebraska wrong. You got Clemson wrong. You got Texas A&M wrong. You got Pittsburgh wrong. So, what does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? That means I was 39-55 going into this week. You guys were 42-52. After 10 weeks, Greg the Cooler is only 1 game behind the geniuses. Only 1 game behind. AMAC, Greg the Cold, put the frosty curse on the PATC community. Okay, so Let's quickly go through what happened on yesterday, on Saturday. Then we're going to go through my projections. And again, and I will remind everybody once again right before I unveil them. This is the projections on November 3rd that I think is going to be the playoffs when they get revealed. Not the predictions of what it's going to look like tomorrow. And that's going to be really obvious once I give you the list. My playoff projections. Next week, I'm going to do the same thing. The next week, I'm going to do the same thing. And eventually, the last one, my last projections will be, of course, a prediction on what the playoff committee is going to release. But look, November 3rd, I'm giving you my vision that you are going to easily tear apart. This is what I think it's eventually going to end up looking like. I'm not interested in I am interested in other people doing it. I'm fascinated. I'm absolutely fascinated listening to people discuss on X and on YouTube channels, trying to figure out what the committee's going to have for Tuesday. I am absolutely fascinated about that, and it's important. But I wanted to do it a different way. I wanted to make a projection on what I think it's going to ultimately end up be, and then make my changes throughout the week. But first, before we get to all of that, let's go through what the heck happened in college football. Let's go through the ACC first. Miami 53, Duke 31. Now Miami's defense struggling, but nobody has proven that they can slow down the Miami Hurricanes offense. And I have Cam Ward as Heisman candidate number 1. Cam Ward is college football's PATC's chalk to win the Heisman right now on November 3rd. Louisville crushes Clemson 33-21. This really hurts Clemson's chances to get to the college football playoffs. This is devastating. It's not just the loss, it's how they lost. Louisville gashed them. Clemson, the game, it wasn't as close as the score indicated. But we're going to find out where I project Clemson. Do I have them in the just miss category? Or do I have them in the playoff projections? We're going to find out. SMU 48, Pittsburgh 25. SMU now has a clear pathway to get into the ACC championship game against Miami. And of course, the winner of the ACC championship game is going to get an automatic berth into the playoffs. SMU now has a clear pathway. North Carolina State 59, Stanford 28, Syracuse 31, Virginia Tech 31, North Carolina 35, Florida State 11, Mike Norvell. Holy smokes, Mike Norvell, I'm telling you. Wow. There's going to be a lot of stories about Florida State. What are they going to do in the transfer portal? They missed on so many of their guys. What an interesting offseason for the Florida State Seminoles. Now let's take a look at the Big 12. Iowa State loses their first game of the year. It doesn't completely knock them out. 23-22, Texas Tech, Iowa State can still get to the Big 12 championship game. 23-22, but this does not help. Kansas State loses to Houston. Houston keeps playing better and better and better. Willie Fritz, holy smokes, 24-19. Does that completely eliminate Kansas State? No, but they're going to have to get to the Big 12 championship game. They're going to have to win the Big 12 championship game to get into the playoffs. The pathway is there, but it is narrow. Arizona State, 42. Oklahoma State, 21. Arizona State. There's one game I'm looking out there that they have on their schedule that could be a landmine for a certain Big 12 team. Holy smokes. UCF 56, Arizona 12. Baylor wins their 5th game. Baylor is one game away from bowl eligibility. Dave Aranda is about to save his job. Baylor Bears are now cooking. 37-34 TCU has been in a lot of close games this year. Holy smokes. Now we go to the Big Ten. Oregon is slamming everybody. The Ducks, 38. Michigan, 17. Holy smokes. Oregon, 9-0, 6-0 in the Big Ten. The Buckeyes win a big game. Happy Valley, 20-13. It was a rock fight. A rock fight that the Buckeyes won. Both teams had chances in the red zone. Both teams could not cash in, but the Buckeyes win a big one, 20-13. And I believe, hint, hint, wink, wink, towards my projections that I'm going to reveal in a moment, I believe this is going to set up the Buckeyes. I think they're on their way. The Indiana Hoosiers, 47. Michigan State 10. The Spartans had a 10-point lead, but then here comes the Hoosiers. Curtis Rourke, 4 touchdown passes. And yes, Mr. Curtis Rourke is in the Heisman watch. My beloved Minnesota Golden Gophers, 4-game Big Ten winning streak. Left for dead. They come alive and they beat Illinois in Champaign, 25-17. Northwestern 26, Purdue 0. Purdue has yet to win a Big Ten game and their head coach now is on the hot seat. UCLA 27, Nebraska 20. Look, I'm going to let everybody know this. Nebraska fan base is a great fan base. I'm actually rooting for Nebraska to get bowl eligible. Just because I throw elbows at a certain moron Cornhusker fan on X, I love the rest of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I love their fans. They're incredible. They need to win a game, one of these next 3 games, desperately. At USC. Then they at home against Wisconsin, at Iowa. And I think that home game against Wisconsin might be the game that Nebraska could get their 6th win. I don't think they're beating USC. I do not think they're beating Iowa at Iowa the way Iowa's playing. Iowa 42, Wisconsin 10. Greg the Cooler unintentionally blew cold air into Madison. I thought Wisconsin had turned a corner, and ever since I said that, the Badgers have sunk into the deep, deep, cold ocean of Greg the Cooler. 42-10, Iowa blows the doors off the Badgers. Washington 26, USC 21. Again, the Trojans had a chance to win the game at the end. The Washington Huskies are one game away from bowl eligibility in the first year as a Big Ten member. And again, very interesting game coming up between Washington and Penn State that I'm going to get to here in a little bit. And then finally, the SEC. Trying to figure out the playoff projections in the SEC gave me a migraine. A Minnesota migraine. Holy smokes. Georgia 34. Florida 20. Carson Beck throwing interceptions left and right. The Bulldogs, I still believe. For whatever reason, I still believe. But I'm also not going to pretend that everything is right with the quarterback, with the passing game. Georgia Bulldogs had enough to break free at the end against the Gators, 34-20. There is trouble at Tennessee. There is trouble at Tennessee. And I'm going to say this. They beat Kentucky 28-18. Again, the Volunteers did not look good. The Tennessee Volunteers was the most difficult team of everybody when it came to my projections here on November 3rd. What am I going to do with Tennessee? And you're going to find out here soon what I did with Tennessee. South Carolina 44, Texas A&M 20. Mr. Head Coach Beamer has got the Gamecocks rolling. Well, maybe not rolling. They're hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. But for the last couple weeks, they've been really good. The Gamecocks are 44-20 over Texas A&M. Again, really hurting the Aggies' chances to get into the college football playoffs. They're not out of it, but the Aggies now are behind the chains when it comes to getting into the playoffs. Ole Miss 63, Arkansas 31. Ole Miss says to everybody, hey, we're still here. We can make this happen. 63-31, Oklahoma 59-14. Vanderbilt is bowl eligible. 17-7 over Auburn. Diego Pavia, the quarterback of Vanderbilt, who defeated Auburn last year as the quarterback of New Mexico State, does it again as the quarterback of Vanderbilt. The Commodores are going bowling. Congratulations. Mississippi State 45, UMass 20. Boise State won. Army won. And so that leads us to the question. PATC's playoff projections. I'm going to go through it. And then I'm going to go through your chat. We're going to open up the phone lines. The rest of the night is going to be you guys calling in and let me know how wrong I got it. What do you think is about to happen? You could talk about next week games. You can project further than that. But let's get to it. I've got one thing I've got to... I got one correction I have to make here. Hold on. And then we're going to get to it. Yeah, screwed it up again. Hold on, everybody. My apologies. Not quite ready. Not quite ready. Mm, 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 mm. Hold on, everybody. I forgot to do something here. I'm cleaning up something. Ba ba ba. Okay. Hopefully that works. Hopefully that works. All right. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Let's see if anything works. Let's see if anything works. Okay. Again, college football PATC, November 3rd, playoff projections. What I think it's all going to end up being. Not what it's going to look like for Tuesday. And that's going to look real obvious once you see what I'm about to do here. And I'm going to try to explain my crazy thinking, my bizarre, the fat guy from Minnesota thinking on these projections. You're going to have lots of material to rip on me once you see what I think on November 3rd. Now, I'm going to change my mind, of course, the results of this coming up week's games. But this is my projections right now. Okay? Everybody understand? Hopefully everybody understands. One more thing I got to do. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. Let's do this thing. Let's get a little crazy here. Let's get a little crazy. Okay. Number 1, Ohio State, Big Ten champs. That's what I have projected. I've got the Buckeyes beating Indiana. I've got them going to the Big Ten championship game. And I got the Buckeyes beating Oregon. Now remember, at the start of the season, I had the Buckeyes beating Oregon in Oregon. The Buckeyes beating Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. And then Oregon defeating the Buckeyes in the semifinals to get to the national championship game. I am not going to get off that beam. The Buckeyes are going to become the Big Ten champs. And that win against Oregon, who's going to be number 1 in the country going into the Big Ten championship game, is going to elevate the Buckeyes as number 1 overall. Number 1 overall. And he says, wow, Greg, they still got to beat Indiana. No question about it. No question about it. Number 2, Georgia. So I've got Georgia, even though there's some issues going on with the passing game, I've got Georgia running the table. Okay, I've got Georgia running the table. And I don't quite have them getting the number 1 spot because the Buckeyes are going to get elevated in defeating Oregon a little bit more than the Georgia Bulldogs beating who they're going to beat. And I'm not going to say who that is right now. Buckeyes 1, Georgia 2. Now, who do I got for 3? Who do I got for 3? Miami. Miami, number 3. Now, could Miami be number 2? Yes. Could Miami be number 1? Yes. I've got Miami running the table. There are going to be good arguments, good logical arguments to have Miami as 1 or 2. But again, it's, Georgia's going to be beating a really good team, a really highly ranked team. We're going to get to that in a second. The Buckeyes are going to beat undefeated Oregon, according to my projections. So Miami is going to settle in at number 3. Could they be number 2? Yes. Could they be number 1? Yes, absolutely. But I got the Hurricanes number 3. Now, I need everybody to relax. I need everybody, if you're standing up, I'm going to need you to sit down. If you're sitting down, I'm going to need you to stand up. Here we go. Number 4. Number 4. Colorado Buffaloes. Edging out Boise State. The Colorado Buffaloes. Now, how do they get there? I'm going to explain this right now, and I'm going to explain it a little bit later. Look, this week I said Iowa State is going to have to do it. They're going to have to show it. The Cyclones have had a great year. I predicted them come to 3rd in the Big 12. The Cyclones have a very good team. But in order to win the Big 12 championship game, in order to get to the Big 12 championship game, they had to show it to me this Saturday, and they did not. It's that simple. It's that simple. I believe, and look, the Wildcats, Kansas State is struggling. They lost to Houston. We're going to get into that in a moment. I believe that Kansas State is going to beat Iowa State. That is my projections. And that might be crazy. Colorado is going to get to the Big 12 championship game and beat BYU. Now, BYU, I've got projected for them to beat Utah. I've got them projected to get to the Big 12 championship game undefeated. And I've got, I've been thinking about this BYU Colorado game. Jake Ratzlaff, Shedeur Sanders, back and forth. And I think Colorado is going to edge BYU out. The Buffaloes, who don't even control their own destiny in reality, I've got them winning the Big 12 game. I know that sounds crazy. I'm going to get blistered, and that is okay. That is what I'm here for. Now, number 5, Oregon. Finishing 12-1. Again, these are my projections on what it's going to look like at the end. Oregon 12-1, losing in the Big Ten championship game to Ohio State, and Oregon gets the 5th spot. Texas 11-2, losing to Georgia in the SEC championship game. So I have Texas beating Texas A&M. And that means I've got Texas A&M finishing 9-3. So what happens to Texas A&M? We're going to find out. Texas gets the 6th spot. Number 7, BYU. 12-1. Now, I had to think about this. BYU 7, BYU 8, BYU 9, BYU 10. No. BYU going undefeated, losing the championship game. Oregon, Big Ten championship loss, they get the 5th. SEC Texas loss, they get the 6th. BYU Big 12 loss, they get the 7. An incredible season for BYU. I do not think the committee should or will punish BYU going undefeated the whole way and losing the championship game. And it's probably going to be an exciting game. BYU, if they go 12-1, I think they get no lower than number 7. So you can rip on me for believing BYU will not win the Big 12 championship game. That's fine. They're the chalk. You can absolutely rip on me. And then, or you can turn around and rip on me and say, if BYU loses that Big 12 championship game, they're not going to be as high as 7. I think they will. I think they will. Number 8, Indiana, 11-1. Again, an unbelievable football season. And a really good team that can beat anybody. Now, I've got them losing to the Buckeyes, right? But, look, there is no way, and in my opinion, there's no way on God's green earth are you going to have an Indiana Hoosier team go 11-1 and their only loss is to the number 1 Ohio State Buckeyes, and Indiana does not get the home game in the first round of the playoffs? I can't have Indiana any lower than number 8. I'm not going to quite squeeze them in at 7. If BYU can beat Utah, BYU goes undefeated, you know what I'm saying? I can't squeeze Indiana ahead of Texas or Oregon for obvious reasons. Indiana, number 8. Again, these are my projections. Number 9, Notre Dame. Notre Dame has been playing great football. They have. Now, I've got them projected to beat Army. I've got them projected to beat USC, but that's a landmine game. I know USC's struggling, but they're in every game, guys. USC's in every game. They're going to be in that game against Notre Dame. But I've got the Irish projected to win out. And I cannot have Notre Dame ahead of Indiana. Notre Dame's loss is to Northern Illinois, and Indiana's loss is to Ohio State. No. Number 9 is the spot. And I respect the hell out of the Irish, this team right now. They are playing some football, baby. They are. But right now, on November 3rd, I can't project them higher than Indiana. And I'm not going to put them higher than BYU. Okay. So you can rip on me on that. Number 9, Notre Dame. Now we're getting into the situation. To me, all that was the easy part. I threw one hand grenade into the projections because there's going to be some upset somewhere, and I think it's Colorado. But I could be way off. I could be wrong, right? I could be wrong, way off, way off. But that is my hand grenade I threw in there. And so that hand grenade affects everything a little bit. But not too much. Not too much. Now, this is where it gets difficult. This is where it gets difficult. Right? These are the teams remaining. Now, I've got to put Boise State in there somewhere. Okay? I got to put them somewhere. I've got Boise State being the G5 champion. So there's 2 more playoff spots left. Right? You've got LSU. You've got Iowa State. You got Ole Miss. You got Clemson, Texas A&M, Alabama, Army, Penn State, Tennessee. You've got a whole bunch of teams left to try to figure out the rest of the playoff projections. Number 10, Penn State. Here's the thing. Here's the thing on Penn State. They played they played Ohio State in a big old rock fight. Played them close, couldn't quite get it done. They've got they got to play Washington, and they got to play Minnesota in Minnesota, and Penn State's going to have to run the table, I believe, to get into the playoffs. They cannot have another slip-up, and they didn't even really have a slip-up. Their only loss is to what I got projected as the number 1 team in the country, the Buckeyes. So in reality, I should have Penn State up with Indiana, but I see Indiana's winning their games more, dominant-wise. Notre Dame, I should have Penn State ahead of Notre Dame, right? But I'm hedging a little bit because I'm nervous about Penn State. They got a couple landmines in front of them. I'm going to put Penn State running the table 11-1. A Penn State 11-1 team. It's amazing that they would be number 10 and not number 4, not number 5, not number 6. Right? But here we are. Barely beating Bowling Green. Just getting by USC. I mean, and look at Indiana. They're just blowing everybody out. Notre Dame is on an incredible roll. Where would I put Penn State higher than number 10? I'm not going to put Oregon. I'm definitely not going to. Texas, again, Penn State right now, I've got number 10. As crazy as all that is. How is Notre Dame ahead of Penn State? Well, that was a tough one, right? It was. Notre Dame's loss is to Northern Illinois. Penn State's loss is to Ohio State. But Notre Dame is rolling, and I think Penn State, if they get by Washington, if they get by Minnesota, again, this is my projections on how it's going to end up. Not how the projections are going to be Tuesday. Remember that. I'm going to have to keep explaining that. And I think Notre Dame is going to continue on their roll. And if Penn State gets by Washington and Minnesota, I think it's going to be by the hair of their chinny chin chin. So I've got Notre Dame barely ahead of Penn State. Okay. Number 11. which was, of course, my most difficult selection because I've got Boise State at 12. I couldn't get Boise State ahead of any of these teams. Real close to Colorado for the 4th spot. Real close to 11 with Tennessee, 10-2. My most difficult selection was between Tennessee and LSU. LSU, for right now on November 3rd, is the first team out. LSU has a game against Alabama, and I've got LSU winning that game. And Tennessee is at Georgia. I've got Tennessee losing that game. So I've got Tennessee and LSU both finishing 10-2. And right now, Tennessee is getting a little bit more juice than LSU. Remember, Tennessee has to play Vanderbilt, I believe, at Vandy, right? At Vandy. At Vanderbilt. And Tennessee is not playing good, guys. So, again, this is my projections on November 3rd. I think Tennessee barely gets in there. This is my just missed category. My just missed. LSU. And if you got, and you know what? I could wake up tomorrow morning and say LSU should get that 11th spot. There is going to be some real tough decisions here. Iowa State 10-2, just missed. Kansas State 10-2, just missed. That's what I got Kansas State projected. SMU 11-2, just missed. Clemson 10-2, just missed. Army 12-1, AAC champs, just missed. Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, all finishing 9-3, just missed. So that would set up a Boise State versus Oregon. First round. And again, Oregon and Boise State already played this year. Oregon defeated Boise State in Oregon 37-34. And I've got it as a rematch. Tennessee versus Texas. Penn State versus BYU. And Notre Dame versus Indiana. Which would be an incredible game in the state of Indiana. So there it is. That is my projections. Let's get to your comments. Let's get to your phone calls. Let me know how wrong I got it. John Teal, SMU got the broomstick. Thank you so much for your super chat, John. SMU just missed. Army, thank you for the super chat, John. Appreciate it. Army has a chance if they beat Notre Dame. If Army beats Notre Dame and if Army runs the table, they're going to get that G5 spot ahead of Boise State. Penn State and Provo would be amazing. Yes, it would. Yes, it would. Oregon would probably play Boise State and Ohio State again. According to my projections, Oregon would play Boise State, and then Oregon would play Colorado. Elliott Howard, 4 weeks left. SEC only has 3 conference games left, and yet most have 2 losses already. When you do this exercise, when you actually sit down like I did, I got a whole bunch of notes. The SEC part is just good luck. I mean, good luck. I got Georgia number 2, Texas number 6, Tennessee number 11. I've got LSU mad at me. I mean, I got all these SEC teams out of it. I mean, SEC fans are looking at this going, are you crazy? You've only got Georgia. You've only got Texas. You've only got Tennessee. That's it. You only got 3 SEC teams in. I do. I've only got 3 in. I've got LSU knocking on the doorstep. Now, of course, if Notre Dame loses one of those games, that's going to open up a spot for an LSU. But I got Alabama going 9-3. I got Ole Miss going 9-3. I got Texas A&M going 9-3. And I cannot figure out how any of them would go ahead of the list I've got. It's going to be crazy. Stephen McNeely, there's a ton of football left to play. Absolutely. Stanky is going to come visit you, Greg. Look, with this projections, I've got everybody mad at me. So, again, I knew that was going to happen. Let me put it down here. LSU will go ahead of BYU. Now, will a 10-2 LSU go ahead of a 12-1 BYU that just lost in the Big 12 championship game? I'm going to ask that question in a poll. First of all, let me open up the phone lines here. Give me a call, 763-260-1333, 763-260-1333. Let's do this. Would 10-2 LSU Okay, the question is, would a 10-2 LSU, a win over Alabama this coming week, finish ahead of a 12-1 BYU, loses in the Big 12 championship game? The voting starts now. Yes, LSU would finish ahead. No, BYU would finish ahead. We'll give the voting 5 more seconds. There's a poll question up there. Would a 10-2 LSU win over Alabama this coming week finish ahead of a 12-1 BYU that loses in the Big 12 championship game? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 54% says no. So it's pretty close. But most in the PATC community who voted said BYU would go ahead. Now, this is a great, I love this question here. Still Austin. Interesting picks, Greg. I don't see a way where the college football playoff doesn't put at least 4 SEC teams in. And the Big 12 will only get their conference championship in. No way that the Big 12 gets 2 teams in. I completely understand that comment. But then when I look at the resumes, when I look at what I think is going to happen, of course, I'm going to be wrong on some of those games. I will say this. If Notre Dame loses a game, there's going to be a 4th SEC team in the playoff. If BYU loses a game before the Big 12 championship game, that means there's probably going to only be 1 Big 12 representative. It's going to be the conference champion. Then there's going to be another SEC team in. So there's a lot. If Penn State loses a game, which I think they might, then there's going to be another SEC team in it. There are lots of scenarios. So in the end, I think, still Austin is probably going to be right. There's lots of different scenarios where the 4th SEC team gets in. But I just can't do it on November 3rd because as I'm projecting these games, I got Penn State winning out. I got BYU winning out, but I got them losing the Big 12 championship game. So that's the problem I'm having. Once you look at everybody's schedule, the toughest one for me was Tennessee versus LSU if LSU defeats Alabama. That to me is where it gets real dicey. LSU 10-2, Tennessee 10-2, Iowa State 10-2, Kansas State 10-2, SMU 11-2, according to projections. Phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you're thinking about what just happened this week in college football. We had a bunch of top teams lose to unranked teams, right? Kansas State lost to an unranked team. Iowa State lost to an unranked team. Texas A&M lost to an unranked team. I know there's another one out there. I can't recall, but there is another one out there. So it's going to happen again. And all these projections, my projections that I just put out, is all going to blow up. It's just going to blow up. So take it as, again, this is an exercise on what I think is going to be the end result. But of course, these games are not going to go the way. A 3-loss Bama guaranteed to get into the Bama Invitational Tournament. Jose. Iowa State, Kansas State, both losing yesterday. Were killers for the Big 12. Ryan Brooks, this is exactly why the Big Ten and the SEC will get the automatic qualifiers pushed through. So losing tough games in the conference gets money and ratings without risk of missing the playoffs. I do believe they're going to get something passed through, yes. But I'm not sure we're going to stick to a 12-team playoff. Nittany 89. Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois has to come with some cost. I agree. Here is the cost, in my opinion. Number one, it really puts the ceiling on them. I think it's going to be almost impossible for Notre Dame to grab that fifth, sixth, seventh spots. The fifth, sixth, seventh seed. Number one. Number two, it puts Notre Dame, if they get a second loss, they're out. They're out. They're out if they get a second loss. So it does come with a cost, but Notre Dame is playing great football. They are. They just are. We'll see what happens when they play Army coming up here on November 23rd. They got USC, who's going to give them a tussle. Colorado is fool's gold. That was my hand grenade that I threw in there. That was my hand. Stephen Clark, the Gophers have a better chance than Colorado. Gophers have been eliminated. They were eliminated long time ago. But the Gophers, I've got them projected in the Mayo Bowl against Pittsburgh Panthers or the Music City Bowl against South Carolina. If 4 Big Ten teams do make it in to the playoffs, I think it's all lined up for the Iowa Hawkeyes to go to the Citrus Bowl. Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate it. Juan Carlos, we will all be rooting for Army against Navy. I know I will. I know I will. Go Army. No, I have not, Nathan. I have not heard of any more Mountain West news. Give me a call, 763-260-1333. We went through my projections. Not what's going to show up Tuesday night, but what is going to actually happen when it starts, the playoffs. It is a great exercise just to think through some of the stuff before the actual home stretch occurs, to think through all this. There's so many landmines. I mean, my goodness, where is my notes? I mean, you got Georgia, right? You got Georgia. I got them number 2 at the end. And they got a home game against Tennessee. They're on the road to Ole Miss. What if they lose to Ole Miss? What if they lose to Ole Miss? That is one of the many landmines that are out there.
Call from
JD.
JD, Mr. Seminole. Thanks for calling, my man. The floor is yours. What is going on? Did you hear my projections? Do you think I'm crazy? Yes, of course you think I'm crazy. Go ahead, my friend.
No, I didn't get a chance to hear those. I apologize. I'll go back and listen.
No problem.
I was calling to congratulate your team. You actually have an actual team. I don't.
Yeah.
To say this year is disappointing is an understatement.
Yeah.
But Minnesota's pulling out some really good victories, and congratulations there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think we're gonna. If we get the job done at Piscataway, New Jersey, this Saturday, it's gonna line up for a Gopher Nittany Lion game, November 16. It's gonna be in Minneapolis. I think they're gonna put it on at night. Now they got to get permission to do that, but I think, or even if they, wherever they put that, whatever slot they put that game, I think that's going to be an impactful game. I think I can give you a list of 20 fan bases that are going to be rooting for the Gophers to beat the Nittany Lions, right? To help their team get in that large bid, right, in the playoffs. So I think that's going to be a great scene here in Minneapolis when the Nittany Lions come to town. But the Seminoles, let's talk about the Seminoles.
Oh Lord.
Obviously, there's going to be coaching changes. Number one. Number two, there might have to be some changes from Coach Norvell himself on how he evaluates. Because there was a lot of misses. They did not just miss at the quarterback position. They missed at their wide receiver position. They missed at the O-line position. We know the Seminoles have money. We know that they win these recruiting battles. So they made a lot of, not just development, but they made a lot of recruiting misses. So Norvell's going to have to. The problem is, I don't know how patient you guys are going to be with him after this disaster. Like, he's really going to have to rev it up for next year. What are your thoughts on it, sir?
My opinion is he needs to gut most of his staff. Number one person that needs to go is his GM, Derek Ray, because I throw a lot of the blame at his feet. And I can elaborate, but let me answer the first question here. He has some good coaches on his staff, but all right, I'm gonna try to not get censored off your or kicked off your show here.
Yeah, do the best you can, sir.
I've never seen a scenario where the offense just doesn't get better. From game 1 to game 9, it doesn't get better. It gets worse.
Yeah.
Was DJ the right pick? No, he wasn't. Were we having issues where we're not a player-led team? Yes, we've had those issues. There's been a lot of issues we've had. They've missed so badly on this on the portal that 247 and some other recruiting sites on their podcasts and so on, they've gone through the whole thing. And to be honest with you, do I think Norvell's a really good coach? Yes. Does he have potential to be one of the elites? Yes, he has that potential. Did he drop the ball? He dropped the ball. He trusted people he shouldn't have trusted. And assistant coaches got way too comfortable. Some of them got way too comfortable in recruiting. They were riding the coattails of last year. And what happened in the portal was there was just a lot of chaos after the snub. And, there were coaches that they wanted to keep that were getting interest from other places. There was just a lot going on. And some of the players they were in on, they could have had, and they drug their feet and they didn't get them. That really good tackle up in Indiana, I'm trying to remember his name. They could have had him. He was on campus. He went back to Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Scorton, who went to Texas A&M, wanted to come to Florida State, but they drug their heels. And granted, he's from that area, but if they really made a play, they might have got him. Cam Ward, I think, would have wanted to go to FSU as much as he would in Miami, but it's just the way it all worked out. FSU just ended up pulling the trigger because Cam, we know the whole thing, but with Cam. Now, there's been people that said that Miami wanted and needed Cam so bad there's nobody that would have been able to outspend them, and that might be the case.
Yeah.
We wouldn't know till it happened, but I think, a lot of the people that FSU brought in, they had really good recruiting rankings going, from high school to college. I guess they just believed their own hype. Look at Jared Verse, look at Braden Fisk, look at Keon Coleman, look at Renardo Green. These guys, Verse is tearing it up, and so is Fisk in the league. Both of those guys are up for potential defensive rookies of the year. I mean, Fisk has 2 sacks tonight. Verse is just terrorizing people. Bernardo Green's doing well. You know, Keon is doing much better. I mean, he's had some good games and then some mediocre games, but and you've got other people that have contributed. So they look at all the success. I mean, look what they did with Jermaine Johnson now.
Yeah.
Granted, these players came in hungry and they gave them the tools to be successful.
You know, Jermaine Johnson was from Minnesota.
What's that?
Jermaine Johnson was from Minnesota, high school.
Oh, was he?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But go ahead.
And,
Just had to put that in there.
I understand. And what I'm saying is that they hit on the portal so much. I think they started believing their own hype that they could turn all of these players into. In other words, they could get the most out of every one of these players. And Derek Ray, their GM, I can't tell you how many misses he's had in the last year and a half. I mean, the recruiting misses over the summer was just staggering. And I don't know. Well, I do know, but it would take me about an hour to explain everything. But it's just, I mean, Derek Ray's the person. You remember the controversy earlier in the season when they weren't playing the war chant on third down and they were piping in music, almost like the DJ type music, and that was getting some national attention. Mm-hmm. That was Derek Ray. You know, that was Derek Ray. We're not even talking about he was screwing up on his player assessments and his projections and so on. I mean, every turn he was messing up. And, you know, I'm trying to think of when Derek Ray came in. I think it was after Verse and some of the other ones. Now, he got Fisk right. He got some of the other ones right. But those guys were, well, Verse was a little bit of an unknown. Fisk was a no-brainer. I mean, Notre Dame wanted Fisk pretty bad. So there's been just more than just a few missteps. You know, Malik Benson, you know, some of these other guys that they've brought in that they just thought, well, we could really maximize their talent and potential. You know, DJ, they thought they could turn him around. Yeah, he's got 5-star talent as far as arm ability and all those other things, but he has some blind spots and weak spots. And the arrogance of them believing they could turn it around when nobody else could.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff Cameron isn't like anti-Mike Norvell, but he's been very adamant. The mistakes that have happened are fireable offenses. That if the contract wasn't as big as it is, they would fire it, because to repair this is going to take longer than just cutting bait and starting over. You know?
Yeah.
This is what has to happen. Okay? They've got to gut their staff, and they got to bring in proven assistant coaches. The kind of coaches that if Mike got fired, they wouldn't have a hard time finding a job. And they might have to overpay for those assistants. Okay? Next year, I mean, your goal is to win 8 games. If you can do more, fantastic. The kind of coaches that can coach up their players, which isn't happening right now, especially at wide receiver and offensive line. It's just not happening. So, and then hope, they've got some really good young talent on the roster, the type of talent that Georgia's and Alabama's would be interested in, and some of those kids. You know, so, but they've got to try to keep as many of them as they can. Try to rebound next year. Try to win 8 games. They might luck out and win 9. I think 7 is probably more realistic. That'll give Mike 2026. Mm-hmm. And then 2026, you got to be sniffing the playoffs again. Yeah. You got to be a 10-win team sniffing the playoffs.
Yeah. I would agree with you. But you think 7 wins would be enough next year? Look, I know there's a lot of repair to do, but would seven get him the 26?
Well, see, here's the problem: is the portal opens up a week to 10 days after signing day. They've lost. I mean, they have a really good offensive line class coming in. If they keep them.
Mm-hmm.
And they had some really good skill position players coming in, but they lost them. They might get a couple of them back. We'll see. As of right now, they've only got like 8 or 9 high school players committed.
Mm-hmm.
So, right, you got to imagine. I mean, they're not going to a bowl game. I know that's not even mathematically possible, I believe. So, if they can look halfway respectable the rest of the season. I mean, there's even rumors that you could hear of firings this week. I don't know. But
you think both those young quarterbacks are going to come back next year?
I don't think Brock comes back.
Okay.
Luke is the one I would want to keep, but he seems to be committed. But you know, people are already trying to poach him.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing with Luke's got all the potential in the world. Georgia wanted him. Other people wanted him. He was a kid. He played wide receiver and safety at a school in Savannah that was really good. They had won state championships, and then he ended up being a state championship quarterback in his first season. So, but he had only played like 2 years at quarterback. So. Of all the athletes coming in, people were saying that he had every bit as much talent as DJ Lagway and some of the other ones. He might have had the best upside of any quarterback that came in the recruiting classes last year at any level, but he wasn't as developed as the other ones. So no, they'll be lining up wanting Luke. People will. So if we can keep him, fantastic. If we can't, we're going to lose some. We've got some talent. I mean, we've got 2 really talented young tight ends. I mean, the Ohio States, the Georgias, the Alabamas would want those guys. The same thing with a couple of the young wide receivers and the running backs. I mean, Cam Davis, Georgia wanted him. FSU's making a play for Chroma, who committed. He was once a crystal ball to FSU, and then he committed to Georgia. They'll still hard in on him, but there's just a lot of changes that need to be made. But I will say this: you get embarrassed against Notre Dame, then you lose to Charleston Southern.
Yeah.
and then you get whipped by Florida. If those 3 things happen, they might just cut bait. And I never thought that would happen, but
yeah, I never thought that would happen either. I don't know. I mean, is Charleston Southern? Do they have a pulse at the level that they play at?
They have one win.
Okay, well, you'll be all right on that. But yeah,
I
getting
don't know,
whooped by
man.
Notre Dame and by Florida isn't going to sit too well either. But one more question.
Sure.
Is there any juice coming out of War Chant? Any juice coming out of Regal Knoll and all that? Have you heard anything? What's the buzz? Tell me what's happening. What's the buzz?
I've purposely stayed off of there for a month.
Oh, okay.
I took a break. I haven't been calling in and so on, not because I'm like frustrated or anything with you. I took a break for a month.
Look, this is my 3rd year doing this YouTube channel. I talk to other college football YouTube channels. This happens all over this happens. People get depressed, upset about their team, and they want to go away from college football content. So I completely understand. I see people coming in and out. That's great. I'm glad you came back. It's like I completely understand it. But you see this. You see our numbers just drop to the floor because there's a whole big fan base out there that says, no, no, no. I'm not going to listen to any more college football until, portal season, coaching carousel. Then everybody gets amped up because everybody has something to believe in. But I get it, JD, man. I'm with you I'm like that every year, almost every year. So, yep, I understand. But so there's no juice that you know of, anything, no rumors, no nothing.
What I have other sources outside of that. I mean,
Yeah,
there's some insiders on War Chant, but I have other sources. Um, all the outside sources and I haven't even asked them anything in a few weeks or anything. I haven't got. I'm like everybody else. We're just so shell shocked because of what's happened. It's like
sure. Yeah,
realignment's almost taken a back burner, or a back seat. Excuse me.
yeah.
Uh, I've just been told that FSU will be fine. It's just when it's going to happen. And I'm not saying the destination is already predetermined. I'm not saying all that. It's that the next version of CFB, whenever that happens, whether it's 26, 27, or 2030, FSU will be in that top tier, whatever it is. And I'm not talking about how the super leagues were ranking their tiers. I'm talking about, you know what I mean, as far as you'll be in that upper level. Now, the more time goes by, I was adamant FSU was going to the Big Ten, and this was months and months and months ago. I'm just curious if FSU is ever able to get away from ESPN, and they just, whether it's the SEC or if there's a third league that pops up, whatever. I don't know. And again, this is just me speculating because I've been told by more than one person, and this has been told to me a couple of times the last few years, is that ESPN was aggravated at FSU for filing the lawsuit because FSU knew that they would have a spot, and they just weren't patient. And so whatever that means, I don't know. And I've heard that in three or four different places. And does that mean that they're predetermined to go to the SEC? No. Do I believe that once you get to 2030, 2032, or whatever, that ESPN would be able to grease the skids enough that the SEC would take them? Sure, I think so. But not right now. And I hear I haven't asked you recently the things you've heard about the Big Ten and so on, but I think as far as the ACC schools, any of the Big Ten conversation is academic because we got to be able to get out first before anybody can get free, and FSU's not going to pay $200 or $300 million just for Miami to get a seat ahead of them. It's not happening. Yep. So we can have a wish list and everything else, and that's all very valid and accurate, but they're not paying an exit fee unless they have a home somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm not saying anything doesn't happen in realignment. It's just it's gone quiet. I think as much. Well, I know people that know a lot of things, but even they would sit there and say there's still hurdles to get over for everybody. I mean, the networks would love to be able to move teams around where they want them to be. Would you agree with that?
What was that last point?
I said the networks would love to be able to move teams around and position them exactly where they want, but there's still hurdles to achieve those goals. And
Yeah.
and it's just gonna take time to get the rest of it figured out.
Yeah.
But I'm rambling here. I appreciate you giving me so much time. It's good to talk to you.
JD, I appreciate you calling, man. I appreciate it a lot. Nice to hear from you again.
Yes, sir. I'll call in more. I just
Yep, no problem.
I've talked to some people, and they're asking me my opinion on games, and it's like y'all don't understand. I've been so frustrated. I'm having a hard time watching games because it's like, oh, you mean it's okay to complete a pass?
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay for actually rush for 100 yards.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mean you don't have to take 10 sacks a game?
Yeah.
It's just like,
all right, man.
It's depressing. All right, have a good night.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
too. Beautiful. Oh, 520. Give us a call back. 520. I was just about to pick up your call. 520. Area code 520. Give us a call. Greg, you better put some respect on SMU. I did. I got him in the just missed column. Just missed column. And then Kenner Bowman. I've got Colorado in there. That's my projections.
Call from
Rick.
All right, the floor is yours, Rick. Go ahead, man. Appreciate you calling.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm just trying to. I was calling to see if I can get you to refresh my memory.
All right.
You stated, and the weeks are running together. I don't know if it was a week ago or a couple of weeks ago. That there would be an announcement during the first quarter of 2025, which we can define as January 1st to March 31st, probably in February, regarding, what was it? Notre Dame or?
I don't know I don't know what you're referring to.
I can't remember if it was regarding the Big Ten and
I don't know what I believe that there's going to be some further development in the first quarter of 2025 on UConn with the Big 12. I think we're going to hear yes or no. I think we're going to hear a lot more first quarter 2025.
Or was it regarding the playoffs within the conference?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes, but I that wasn't a Big Ten. Big Ten's one of those conference. In terms of, I see what you're saying. I did not direct it at the Big Ten. However, it was conference or conferences have had discussions about a flex semifinal weekend at the end of their regular season, where they have a semifinal playoff within the conference.
Okay, so that was regarding Power Four conferences or every conference.
Yes, but I did not isolate the Big Ten as being, and I'm not. I did not go specific on a conference.
Okay, and that's where I wanted the clarification, because that was that was me that was doing my own speculation, Big Ten wise.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But regardless, so now that we know it's well, what do we know? It's going to be conferences that are going to do it, but we don't know which conferences.
I know of a particular conference or conferences.
Okay.
I know a particular conference that has had deep discussions with the media partner on having a conference playoff at the end of the season, flex weekend, to grab more revenue. And the discussions were so deep that they actually received a number figure of how many millions they would make for each semifinal game. And that's how deep the discussion is. The only one who has mentioned anything about the potentiality of that publicly, since I've been bringing it up since September, is Ross Dellinger. Sneaked it into one of his articles and said football conference tournament, as a way to get more revenue, because it's a hurdle, it's difficult. If the House versus NCAA becomes official, the $20.5 million salary cap, that looks like that's going to be the figure. Schools are going to be using 13 to 15 million of that $20.5 million cap in the football program. It's hard to come up with that scratch without having to do other things that these athletic directors do not want to do to their athletic departments. Therefore, the pressures on these commissioners to find extra revenue streams, and that is one of the threads that one commissioner in particular is pulling hard on. That potentiality of grabbing a bunch of millions of dollars for a conference semifinals. But just to be clear, I have not said it's the Big Ten doing that. I have speculated and said the Big Ten, look, if they get 4 automatic qualifiers, if they push that through, if there's a 14-team playoff, you can see how it works. Top 4, they wouldn't harm each other if they had a semifinal weekend, blah, 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 blah. But I haven't said that it's the Big Ten. I'm not allowed to say what conference it is, but
it's good to add that clarification.
yeah.
But we know that once one does it, and others see that one has done it,
yeah,
it can be mighty attractive to in order to keep up with the one that did it.
Yeah. There might be a little bit, might be a domino effect. Just like when the SEC was the first one to get the SEC championship game, right?
Right.
Yeah. It could.
And that's where I personally, it wasn't you, it was me, extended it out to Notre Dame having to become involved in that in order to keep up.
Mm-hmm.
Because if hypothetically, the 4 P4s conferences did it, I think it forces Notre Dame's hand.
Well, maybe that being a part of a combination of a lot of other things on the buffet table, right? So these commissioners are striving to grab more revenue, and that is going to be the big story. Commissioners going for more revenue is going to be the big story, first half, second half, but starting with the first half of 2025. In regards to what we're talking about, in regards to what the SEC and the Big Ten is doing with the scheduling agreement. Also, private equity, infusion of cash. When I do these live shows, when I talk about the difficulties of these athletic directors coming up with the salary cap, the money for the salary cap, invariably I get in the chat people saying, well, my school's going to be able to do it. My school's going to be able to do it. My school's going to do it. My school's going to do it. My school's going to do it. And then I'll get DMs on Twitter saying, well, Greg, my school's committed. My school's going to be able to do it. My school's going to be able to do it. And then when I hear the chatter behind the curtain, I'm fortunate to be in a spot where, I have people very good people talking with me all the time. The chatter is completely different than what the chatter is in the chat room and what I get in DMs on Twitter. The conversation is not these schools. A lot of these schools in the Power Conference are not completely committed because they're waiting for their commissioner to produce more revenue, right? To get it,
And I think you heard something similar to that from the who was it, the president or the AD of Illinois?
Yeah. It's
Well, let's think about that for a second.
Yeah.
If Illinois, with all the success they're having this season, and all of the big money that they already get from the Big Ten,
yeah.
if they're concerned.
Here's the thing, though. Like Illinois gets a lot of money. These Big Ten schools get a lot of money. But these Big Ten schools have so much commitment, right? They have so many student athletes who are under scholarship. And all of that gets impacted. All that gets added into the cap. They don't want to reduce their sponsored sports. They don't want to cut back on all these other things that are going on. So yeah, even now I'm not talking about the Buckeyes, the Wolverines, and I'm not talking about the high-end Big Ten teams. I'm talking about your Illinois, your Purdue, your Rutgers, your Maryland, your Minnesota. They want to keep things just the way they are.
But in order to do that, you might have to consider some playoffs.
That's why this is one of the major, and this is the major driver of Sankey and Petiti with his scheduling agreement. If they're going to do it, and I think they're going to do it, it's going to be really aggressive. It's going to be a lot of games in between the SEC and the Big Ten, and it's going to have to bring in a lot of money, and they think that's what's going to happen. The driving force of all of that is the salary cap. Petiti and Sankey does not. They want all their schools to be able to compete at the high. They want Greg Sankey wants Vanderbilt to be able to spend money on their 25 suddenly expanded baseball roster, 25 scholarships, and they want Vanderbilt to be able to spend a few million on their baseball program. Mississippi State on their baseball program. They all want their schools to be able to fulfill that salary cap, without having to destroy some other part of the athletic department. That is the leading motivation towards the scheduling agreement.
And so do all the schools in the ACC and the Big 12.
Yeah, they have motivation. And that motivation might lead to a different solution. Hint, hint, wink, wink. So, to get other revenue streams.
Got it.
Yep.
Thanks a lot for clarifying for me.
Got it. I appreciate the call, man.
Yep. Take care.
All right. Great call, great call. I see elbows are being thrown a little bit about this holy war. It's okay to throw elbows, just don't do personal shots at each other. If you want to do a shot at BYU, go ahead. If you want to do a shot at Utah, go ahead. Just don't take the personal shots to each other. You can rip on me, but don't rip on each other. Again, if you just join us, this is my college football PATC. College football PATC projections. Not what is going to be projected for not what is projected for what's going to be shown Tuesday night. The projections of what it's going to end up being. And again, I'm gonna change it next week, right? And next week after the results of every game. But this is my projections. Number one, the Buckeyes end up Big Ten champs. They're going to get the number one ranking. Not Tuesday, but at the end of the college football championship games. Ohio State's going to be number one. I think they're going to run the table and beat number one Oregon to get that number one spot. Number two, Georgia. Number three, Miami. Number four, Colorado. Yes, I believe Colorado, if I project the games out, are going to sneak into the Big 12 championship game and beat BYU. Now, I think Kansas State's going to beat Iowa State at the end of the season. Colorado's going to run the table. Colorado, Big 12 champs. Number 5, Oregon, 12-1. Texas, 11-2, will get the 6th spot. 7, BYU. Oregon will be the Big 10 championship. The loser of that game, Texas, SEC loser. BYU, Big 12 loser. I don't think they're going to push Oregon, Texas, and BYU any further down than 5, 6, and 7. Indiana gets the 8th spot. Their one loss would be to the number one team in the nation, the Ohio State Buckeyes. 9, 10, and 11 were very difficult. Notre Dame, 11-1, projected out to run the table. Number 10, Penn State. Their only loss would be to the number one team in the country, but yet I have them at number 10. Yes, they've got a couple landmines in front of them. Washington and the game at Minnesota. Number 10, Penn State, and 11, Tennessee. The most difficult one, Tennessee versus LSU. Right now I've got Tennessee projected. Just missed schools. LSU at the top of the list. LSU 10-2, Iowa State, Kansas State, SMU, Clemson, Army, AAC champs, Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, all finishing 9-3. Those are the just missed schools in the playoffs. Boise State would play Oregon in the first round. Tennessee, Texas, Penn State, BYU, Notre Dame at Indiana. And then the winner of Boise State and Oregon, which, by the way, would be a rematch from earlier first week of the season when Oregon defeated Boise State 37-34 at Oregon. This would be a rematch. The winner of number 12, Boise State, number 5, Oregon, would play number 4, Colorado. The winner of Tennessee versus Texas would play Miami, number 3. Number 10, Penn State. Number 7, BYU. The winner of that game would play number 2, Georgia. And the winner of Notre Dame versus Indiana will play number 1, Ohio State Buckeyes. So that is my projections. Started off the show with that. I wanted to finish the show with that. People think I'm crazy. Of course I'm crazy. Of course I'm crazy. And of course, if that projections is all going to blow up because something crazy is going to happen. if Utah beats BYU. So many games this week that's going to blow up everything. Again, we're going to go through next week's schedule tomorrow, Monday live show. So please subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Open up your notifications. We can come on live at any time and smash the like button if you liked our content tonight. I appreciate you all coming on in. Mark Ruckert, Greg, your projection seems Penn State has a much better resume than Notre Dame. I can buy that. But Notre Dame has had, no question, Penn State with a much better loss, but Notre Dame has been playing fantastic football. And I think if Penn State gets to 11-1, I think they do it by not dominating performances against Washington and my beloved Minnesota Golden Gophers. So I got Penn State going 11-1 with a really good resume, but I can't get them above anybody else on that list. Not above Indiana, not quite. And then Oregon, Texas, BYU, again, we're going to find out a lot this year. How does the committee, how much do they punish the conference championship loser of those games when they go into those games undefeated or with one loss? Like Oregon, if they go into the Big Ten championship game undefeated and they lose, I don't think they go any farther than 5th. Texas, one loss. If they lose in the SEC championship game, I got them 6th. BYU, if they go to the Big 12 championship game and undefeated and lose, how far do they bring BYU down? While Penn State did not have to play that game. Indiana did not have to play that game. Notre Dame, of course, did not have to play that game. So that's why I have it the way I have it. But again, it's all going to change after this week's results. I mean, if you got the Utah Utes being the BYU Cougars, there's so many landmines still out there. We got a long ways to go. I hope you've enjoyed this. I know I enjoyed it, put it together. We're going to do it again next Sunday night, projections. And tomorrow we're going to be going over the games for next weekend. I appreciate you all coming on in. I appreciate the donations to help us keep the lights on. Again, before you leave, smash that like button if you have liked, enjoyed our content. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.